Okay, so we've started off in poetry and we're going to continue down the road of poetry. And what we're going to discuss today is something else that I want you guys to think about, and that is tone, mood, and the poet or the author's voice. Okay? When I'm talking about an author's voice, it is who the poet is or who the writer is. Okay? It's what the writer's trying to tell us when they are creating this work that we're reading, and it's what they want us to take away from the piece of work that they have given us. So this can be in movies, this can be in books, this can be in poems. There is always a voice that is expressed when you're working in literature or poems, which is what the genre that we're going to be in right now. So I want you to take a look at this chart. So here I have tone and mood. First, we'll discuss tone. Tone is the author's attitude expressed through words they use. Okay? So when we think about tone, it's an attitude. For instance, when I'm calling my son, I say, "Hey, Blake, come here." Okay? That is a tone that's pretty lighthearted, right? But if I say, "Blake, come here," that tone is something completely different. And you can feel that those are two different situations there, because when my voice deepens and my tone becomes much harsher, that there I mean business. It's not playtime. So you're like, uh-oh, something's happened. All right. So that is the tone. That's when your voice flexion changes. And you can tell this in any way, in any person when they're speaking to you. That's something that we automatically pick up on, is the tone of their voice. So when your mother says to you, "Hey, watch your tone," she's talking about your voice flexion and what you're saying. Okay. So in poetry, you have to read the words to know what the tone is for that piece. Now, the other part is mood. Mood is the feelings the reader gets from reading. Okay. So it's the atmosphere that's created. It's what you're feeling. Are you feeling something? That is the mood of the piece, whether it feels dark and dreary and glim, or whether it feels bright and shiny and happy. So that's mood. All right. So the next thing that tone and mood encompass is this piece right here. Tone and mood encompass the author's voice or the poet's voice. All right. So the voice is the emotions. Okay. When you were younger, in elementary school, you learned that voice is if you're happy or sad or mad or tired or embarrassed. It was very elementary. Well, now the way that we're going to look at pieces, the way that we're going to look at poets and poetry and reading our literature, different books that you guys are going to read, is through these three things: the emotions that are being expressed, the tone, and the point of view, which we'll get into later. But the voice is created through the emotions, okay? And the tone and the attitude put together with the point of view creates the voice of the piece. So that's how we think of what the voice is. Now, most poets are very specific. You'll find very interesting word choices. And that's because you have to be very careful in the words that you choose when you're writing. And they're aware of that when, they're writing a piece, because the word choice builds the emotions, and the word choice helps you to understand just exactly what that piece is all about. All right. And that is how you get the voice of the piece. So through all of these things, you can understand if a piece of work is comical or if it's depressing, if it's very formal, or if it's informal, if it's lighthearted, or if it's very serious, or positive or negative, or persuasive or argumentative. All of these things are what the voice is that the author is portraying. Okay, so we're going to take a look at, let's see, we're going to take a look at this piece. Now, you've already been introduced to Langston Hughes. And this is a piece by Langston Hughes, and it's called Harlem. So I'm going to read it to you. And when I read it to you, I want you to pick up on what you think, the tone of this piece, okay? What the author's voice, what the poet is trying to say, what the poet wants you to feel when I'm reading it. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Okay? So thinking about that piece, let's go back. Let me bring this up. Let's go back to this. All right. So he's asking, does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? So we can picture that raisin just shrinking up. Or does it fester? All right. Does it fester? When something festers, it just sits and lingers. That's called festering. And if he's saying, does it fester like a sore, then that means it's a sore that's, pussy and oozing and just, ugh. You think of nasty, it's just gross, right? Or does it stink like rotten meat? If it stinks, that's something else, that it's not a very pleasant, smell that's coming to mind, right? Or does it crust over like syrupy sweet? So we know what crustiness is like. So it's asking you, this poem is asking you to think about what happens to a dream deferred. And deferred means something that's put off, okay? It's something that you didn't take advantage of. So what happens to those dreams that you don't see through? So that's what the poet is asking here. So we're not going to analyze this, but I just want you to see the word choices and hear the word choices that he created by his voice, okay? These are the word choices that he used, and it expressed a voice. So there was a definite feeling when you read this poem, all right? So your next piece that you're going to see further down in the slide is accents again. So we saw it yesterday, accents. Now we're going to look at it today, but this is going to be the author actually performing it. And I want you to listen. I want you to listen out for the word choices that are made. I want you to pay attention to the point of view, the emotion that it brings about, and to the attitude and the tone of the author while she's performing it. All right. I think it's something you guys are going to enjoy. So go ahead, and after you're done, you're going to scroll through and answer some questions. And I hope that you guys look at things a little differently when you're learning about this part of poetry. All right.